honest from the get-go here. This game has never sat too close to my heart. Mega Man 2 is a leap in presentation, double the length of the stages, has a myriad of different stage themes and robot betties to contend with, and all that jazz. The music is super enjoyable, but truthfully it's not my favorite in the series. Dr. Wily gets his Skull Castle theme started here. Dr. Light makes some items to drop the magnet beam, and Mega Man puts on some Lure boots with a whole lot less ice. Oh, instead of 6 Robot Masters, there's 8. True to his name, lots of airtime here on Airman Stage. I really don't know what to feel about this stage. Sure, if you're hyper precise, you can breeze through this stage, but for us mortals, it's a whole lot less free-flowing than what its name suggests. Great tune, can't go wrong with it, seriously. Now, the boss fight is meh, it's sort of dull to me, and that's something to note. Lots of short waiting periods in these Robot Master fights this time around. Not to pull a really loose thread from far away, but this makes me think of Ocarina of Time, where it's you're sitting there and having to wait or dodge or something for a moment, and then you get to attack. Mind you, that's not with every Robot Master, but it feels like a fairly consistent theme with some of them. The air shooter is handy, though it's kind of meh. It feels like it was specifically made to counter Crash Man. Also of note, Mega Man gets item number 2, which is a jet-like item that makes wide spaces easy to travel, but I don't know about that slight drag when it takes off. Cool waterfall effect, if a little gaudy to the eyes. I like the idea of Bubble Man Stage by being able to jump super high but with spikes riddling the ceiling. The water segment is sandwiched by these small platforming sections which don't feel too in place. Other than the waterfall aesthetic, I think it could have done without myself, or maybe just the one at the end. The tune for the stage is pretty somber, but I really enjoy it. The fight is a bit like fighting in mud, and I get vibes of Fireman from Mega Man 1 in this fight, but the floating jumps and the bouncing bubbles, they don't make it feel nearly as fun as that Fireman fight. Bubble Lead is a meh item, but you absolutely need it. Probably one of the more all-encompassing stages. Heatman's offers a lot of fighting, a lot of jumping, action all around, but most importantly, the joy of joys, those Yoku blocks. I like the idea, but they laid far too many of them at one point in the stage, so thank goodness for item number 2, but they could have sprinkled a little less of them. The song isn't bad, but probably one of the weaker offerings of the lot. As for the fight, Heatman is another example of the start and stop fighting that happens with the Robot Masters this time around. It's not tough, but I'm not too keen on it. Atomic Fire isn't anything special in the sense of the attack, however, what it can do is you can charge it up, which is pretty cool, but it will drain a lot of the item use quickly. Item 1 is now available, which provides a temporary platform, which is handy, and I don't think gets enough love. Woodman Stage is something. Not too many pitfalls to worry about, so it's a bit more of an action sort of stage, which is something I'm okay with. In presentation though, it's a bit of a mix, somewhat muted by being underground for a third or half of the stage, with the other half looking pretty nice. Those chicken robots are cool. I actually really like the idea of a robot that's too quick or too tough to beat, but the best way to do it is by holding still. I don't think that aspect is brought up enough. As for the theme song, it's one that I'm still not too keen on. Some people really like it, I'm not one of them. As for the fight itself, like Heatman, like Airman to some smaller degree, this is another one you can only attack at certain moments, and you're playing the waiting game. However, he is much more aggressive and can do a good deal of damage. Leaf Shield is a beastly shield weapon, but it will leave as a projectile once you move left or right, which is a little bit of a bummer, but not surprising. A cheery, funky tune for a stage that goes up, 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 and up. It is a nice mixture, except for that last little bit with the ladders. I don't like it. I wish it was more platforming or something. Maybe it's just me, and I just don't get very lucky, but I seem to have a knack for having the bird drop the eggs, and the little birdie's always attacking me, and it's a bit of a headache to get back to it. That's just me. The other stuff though, it works. The on-rails platform, moving through increasingly complex routes, it works even if it is really slow to move through, though it would take away from the constant going up theme to more of a, to try to do it more laterally, more horizontally, I think would have done better. But I liked it. Also, I mean, if it's too slow for you naturally, you can always use the item once. As for the fight, this is a very aggressive fight. Crash Man gets really busy. This fight is good, and it feels like a slower Quick Man, which isn't bad, but you can see where those two sort of pair off with one another. The Crash Bomber can break away certain walls, but besides that, it's a pretty bleh kind of weapon. True to its name, it's a quick one. Where Crashman's stage went up, 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 this one goes down, down, down. Famous for its beams of instant death, the second round of them brought dread to me as a child. Even if it is clever, it's such a dick move to entirely block out the screen so players can't formulate a plan when it's paused. The game is literally telling you at that point to get good. On one hand, I really don't like it. On another hand, as I've gotten older and can get through it pretty easily, I'm like, okay, it's not nearly as bad as I thought it was as a kid. The tune's not bad, but not one that sticks in my head compared to some of the others. Fighting Quickman can be rough starting at low health, and the uneven stage can be troublesome, especially if you're trying to use the Crash Bomber. The only advice that I can think of that works for me is just be as aggressive as Quickman. If you're going to use the Crash Bomber, Quick Boomerang is an alright weapon. It can be somewhat puny, but if it hits, it hits. Catchier than the flu, Middleman's theme slaps. I mean, this shouldn't come as any surprise. And to be fair, the stage isn't too bad. I don't mind the floors forcing movements one way or the other. It's a tight, compact stage and gets the job done. The fight is nice, not tough. Having the conveyor in the boss room is a good addition. That's a nice way to try to mix up the fight so it's not simply, oh, it's another boss. You see this happen with the refight with Middleman, where there's no moving conveyor, and it's just like, okay, sure. As for Metal Blade, is there really anything to say about it? It is overpowered. Yeah, sure, some enemies can deflect it, but if they don't, they're gonna regret it pretty much immediately. An Icy Stage without ice, technically. Momentum slides Mega Man on Flashman's stage all over the place. It's a very constricting stage too. It's pretty cleverly done, where there's two paths you can go even if it's on the same screen. You can sometimes bob and weave in between the different paths, and it can make it really easy or it can make it somewhat difficult. Very well done. Also, it helps that there's a funky tune to get you jamming through. Even if it is a quick, somewhat aimlessly thematic stage, you know, you have these two different paths, you have this ice, but besides that there's... Sure, it's got the gleam of the colors, flash. They could have tried something different, but it is one of the more unique stages. I do like it. The fight with Flashman is fairly straightforward, where Quick and Crashman jump around, Flash hops and pretty much tanks hits as he comes towards you. About the worst part about it is the slippery floor. Time Stopper, outside of dealing with Quickman and his stage, it's really useless. Sure, it can be done with speedruns and stuff, but just in a typical playthrough, it's not something you're going to be like, yes, time stop. Personally, I think there are better variations of this type of weapon in later games. Item 3 also appears and is this weird hopping candy looking thing. It's helpful, but it can be kind of finicky. And that all leads up to the Dr. Wily stages. We are presented 5 stages that step up the difficulty. Stage 1 gets all the love for the tune, and it is a good one, but I think the part that gets lost in it is that it is also a great show of scaling the walls to assault Wily's castle. Me personally, I like the tune, but I think there are a whole lot better Mega Man tunes out there. That said, I think the stage does a really good job of having to use weapons to scale upward. So it's not just an easy assault, it does make you have to be a little bit more resourceful. However, it can also make issues where you have to farm for weapon recharges if something happens, or you'll have to eat the losses until you get a game over and try again. And I know it leads up to this first stage climax of the dragon boss. However, I can't stand this boss. I don't like the one-hit, one-kill aspect. Mega Man Unlimited did it with the crab boss and the ladder and everything. I don't like this. It's not that like it's super hard or anything, but I don't... There's something about being hit and then stun hit into falling off that just aggravates me. Am I petty? Sure, whatever. I don't think it's a good way to go about doing it, but that's just me. It could just be childhood frustration spilling through. But this fight is a whole lot less interesting compared to the hoopla it tends to get, because it's always a common image to be like, hey, it's the stage 1 fight. Now you go from the gloom to the grime to stage 2. This stage drains more item juice, but it can be replenished, and there is an E-tank for those who hold out. The rune boss will be a theme revisited throughout the series, but it's alright. It does hit like a truck though. Stage 3 holds a new tune, which is good for building tension, but not so melodically cool. The infiltration continues into Dr. Wily's septic tank. It's quick and not so bad, and the boss shows Dr. Wily's love for everything Guts Man. Stage 4 pushes the limits with false floors and moving platforms like Crushman's stage. Then a string of robot baddies before another to me dumb boss. Only the crash bomber works, and if you don't have enough you can't win. I'm not too keen on it. I know Mega Man 3 will do something similar, except for there'll at least be options, like 2 options, and it doesn't help it. Mega Man 4 also does it for one of the Wily spots, and if there's at least 2 options, that's fine. 1 seems a little too constricting. I get that it's more of a puzzle fight, but blah. This filtered a lot of people. This filtered me a lot as a kid too. I remember the first time I finally got through this. I was like, oh thank God. But that first time was rough. I will say this, if you can save a shot, it will come in handy. Stage 5 is all the refights, and then a fight with Dr. Wily. And if you do have that crash shot left, his second form drops. Then there's a secret final area, which is a bit of a surprise. You're like, ooh, okay, cool. And this last area has no music, which is good for tension building. It does give a good sense of dread. The acid or blood or whatever it is that leaks from the ceiling is pretty cool and will kill you in 3 hits. Just dodge and weave to reach the Alien Wily. Which is, I remember the first time I seen this as a kid, I was like, what is going on? And then getting absolutely thrashed, because even though he moves in a pattern, which helps if you're patient, as a kid that's a little bit harder, but it's not too difficult. However, it was figuring out that only the bubble lead shot works, which is poopy. It makes sense, but this is another one where if you don't have it, you're basically just getting a game over to be like, okay, cool. Thankfully, there's a lot of uses available for that. And with a fight that's not... You know, if you're patient and get the timing down, it's pretty easy. The ending is nice and out in the countryside, which is sort of at odds with the cityscape at the beginning, but whatever. This game took what one planted and added in their own and developed a very strong identity of what Mega Man is as a game and as a series. Sure, it still has a little bit of jank and roughness around the edges, but it took the series in a fun direction. Now, some love this game to pieces. That'll always be the case. There'll always be the people who will say Dr. Wily Stage 1, best Mega Man tune, Mega Man 2, best game. I am just not one of those people. And I don't put it here at this rung to be like, oh, it's just a bad game. No, like, truthfully, I would say everything from 9 up are games that I'm like, oh, I'm okay with, or I really like. They're not bad. It's just, this one never gelled with me. As a kid, I gravitated towards the other Mega Man games, and this one never really sat well with me. You know, eventually I did get through it, and sure, you get filtered hard, but after a while, it felt like it was missing something. The music didn't always sit well with me, because it's not like it's bad. Like, when I say it didn't sit well with me, I'm not like, oh, it just sounded like scratching tin cans with aluminum foil or something like that. It's not that it's bad, it's just not stuff that really stuck to me, so that's where I'm going with that. It's a similar thing with a lot of different things in life. Some people really focus, and sure, you can see the jump from 1 to 2, but I got 1, 2, and 3 as a kid, so I didn't quite have that fantastic leap from 1 to 2 to be like, wow, I had all 3 of them to be like, oh, okay, you know, play through. It did not have the distinct qualities that would have if I had played it when it first came out compared to playing the first one. I admit that, but unfortunately that means to me it really slides back hard because I don't feel like it offers, outside of Flashman stage and scaling the walls of Wily's castle in stage 1, in a gameplay sort of sense, it doesn't really give me much to sink my teeth into. That's why I make it to put it out there, and then people can tell me I'm wrong, right? Where some people love this game to pieces, for me, it's simply another rung in the ladder.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.